He said, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, but it's too difficult.
Yep.
And it is a difficult problem because
Yeah, it is.
the TIF does affect the adjacent areas.
I know, it's surprising
in a good
because I'm
way
here
or
on
a bad
time,
way.
right?
How do you
Dang it,
quantify
corn
that?
It is
Put that
3:05.
into the formula. The next TIFs are probably gonna be those junkyards.
I think we just repeal the whole law.
Hate to ruin the
And reassess the
vibe,
whole
but it is 3. And so we will get the January meeting of the West Dakota Water Development District underway. First item on the agenda is a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Robin gonna be here? What's that? Is Robin gonna be here?
Next item is the roll call of members.
Okay, Koth.
Here.
O'Shea.
Here.
Driscoll. Here. McGregor.
Here.
Mullally.
Here,
Young.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Care.
Next item on the agenda is item 3, approval of the agenda. The board cannot take any official action on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I have two questions. One, I'd like to move the election of officers down the agenda to right before item 16, before we go into executive session. I think it's kind of crazy changing officers right in the middle of the meeting.
Okay, is
So
there-
let's do that at the end and
I'd second that.
and move on.
Okay.
And, well, let's vote on that, and then I'll suggest my next one.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to move item 5 down to what would then be item 15 in the current order after the motion to enter executive session. Discussion on the motion. And so
Would that be a new 15 or a, oh, okay, we're losing one and gaining one.
Yeah.
We're just replacing numbers.
So, any discussion from the board or on this item?
I have another item.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of moving it down,
We don't have a first or second.
McGregor and Klein.
Is this on item 3?
Item 3, they're requesting a movement of the,
Yeah, so that's the only adjustment?
No, it sounds
So
like there's
far.
more.
so far, it looks like there will be multiple. So we're,
By who?
McGregor, and then Klein is the second. Okay. All those in favor of moving item 5 to now item 15, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. We're still looking at an approval of the agenda.
Did you have something to add?
Well, I don't think we have to change it, but just wanted to point out item 7 when we get to that. The Wall Current went out of business, so when we approve the legal newspapers, we shouldn't have that on the motion. But I think we could probably leave the agenda as it is.
Scott, you said you had another one?
No, I'm okay with that as it is now.
Okay.
I was just gonna suggest that if that issue on the Black Gap Pond, if Robin was here, because, you know, we could move that up and get her done and out of here before we go into all these other discussion items. But since she's not here, she'll just have to sit through it.
Okay. Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So move.
Okay,
Second.
seconded by Driscoll. Discussion on the motion. Okay, all those in favor of approval of agenda, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Okay, item number 4 is conflict of interest disclosure. If any of the board members have a conflict of interest at this time, please state that you do have a conflict of interest and what.
Mr.
agenda.
Chairman, I have a conflict of interest with item 13, the request for funding of the Black Gap Pond Reclamation Project. I live in the Black Gap subdivision, so.
Okay. Any other conflicts of interest? Okay, hearing none. Moving to item number 5, the approval of the minutes from the December 9th meeting.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Seconded by Klein.
Yep.
Okay, motion on the, on the table is to approve the minutes as written. Made by Director Driscoll, seconded by Director Klein. Discussion on the motion. Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item, one of the last items that we need to do for the New Year's, the designated official paper of the Water Development District. One paper in the district is needed at minimum, but we can designate whatever amount of papers that we wish to designate. Right now, from what we have heard from Director Mullally, that the Hill City Purveyor, excuse me, is a paper on the item, and the wall current is no longer in there. Is there a motion to approve the paper or any addition of the paper, any papers that would like to be added?
So moved.
Okay. So the motion on the floor that needs a second is to designate the Hill City Purveyor as the official newspaper. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mullally. Discussion on the motion.
Young, not McGregor.
It's the beard, you look alike.
Twinsies.
Young, not old.
Twin brothers of a different mother.
Okay, so I think we need to, on the. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Okay, moving on to number 8, treasurer's report.
Okay, so the treasurer's report is displayed basically under agenda item number 8. Starts on that page and goes for the next basically 2.5 pages or 2.25 pages. I guess the only things that are sort of things to be noted without, if you don't want to go into detail or you haven't studied it. We did move some money from our Black Hills Savings Money Market after we received our November, I think it was November, big tax payment. So we moved about $125,000 from that money market fund here in a local bank that was paying like, less than 0.5% interest to the Raymond James aggregated account that's paying about a 4% rate of interest. And so we're gaining about $2,500 a month on that account. Then I guess the next thing that might be worth noting is on the projects page, which is page 8. Larry's got the active projects highlighted in kind of a gray tone. And then you'll note that there was over expenditure of the approved budget on a couple of projects noted in the red ink on the far right-hand column on both LaCroix Law Golf Course and the Star Village projects. So those were what budgets were approved budgets were overspent. And then I don't know. I think that's I guess about it. I guess the other item to note is that I guess that's it really right now, unless there's questions.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Question for Director Coates. So you just moved some money from a savings account to Raymond James, is that what you said?
Yeah, some time ago, the board authorized the executive committee to do that, so we had a discussion about that, and it seemed like it was the intelligent thing to do so we could continue to gain a better rate of interest with Raymond James.
Yeah, okay. And so the Black Hills Community Bank is basically just checking accounts now for the,
Well, you can see the display there. We've still got a savings account at Black Hills that's where the direct deposits are made from our tax revenues throughout
Okay.
the year. There's two big ones, and then there's a dribble of them that come in throughout the entire year as people pay late taxes and stuff like that. So it's
Okay.
still active.
okay,
And we have a checking account there, and then we have a couple of other sub-accounts that are specifically organized, for receipt and transfer of monies for like the Water Smart grant. Those are the two top ones on that page.
yep.
So nothing's really changed except we moved some money from a low interest account to a high interest account.
And on the expenses, we talked about having a legal category. Is it not there because it's zero?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
It doesn't display unless there's an expenditure.
Okay, fine.
And that's how they all work.
I entered a penny just to see if it show up in Randy's report, and it showed up as a penny.
Okay, fair
But
enough.
There's nothing there, but so it will show.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, did we get a response back from the letter to the Pennington County Conservation District? As to the 45,000?
I reached out multiple times and it will be, I have it as item 11.
Oh, I'm
as-
sorry, I missed that.
No worries.
Okay,
Okay, because you removed it from the,
right,
It's off the ledger.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Mr. What are we gonna do about this Green Valley deal?
Well, the last time we had anybody here, and this is just my recall, they were in the throes of trying to figure out how to reinvent because their budget that they anticipated was way out of whack with the bid they got for that pressure system. What they told us is that, and we should probably reach out to them, but what they told us is because of our commitment, they had that plugged into their whole plan. And if we were to, even though we would maybe figure on giving them money again, if we were to remove that commitment from, basically our books and officially take it back and put it in our account, that was gonna throw them into a real bad situation in terms of the ongoing applications they had with rural something or something and a state and whoever else they were trying to get money from. So I guess that's kind of a lesson learned is that should one of these come up in the future, we might want to put a timestamp on it and say you can have this money available for 5 years. And then, when that time comes, they know it's gonna go away and they have to reinvent. But at this juncture, we don't have anything like that, so unless we can get some input from Green Valley to say that we can take our money back and reallocate it again, we screw them up pretty bad.
Are they still working towards their project, or
I
has it all
think so.
collapsed now?
I think so, but I don't know.
Do you know, Dan?
Well, I know that Director Kerr talked to I don't know if she was the new chair. It sounded like a bunch of them resigned from the board.
They had a big mass change, yeah.
And he was talking, I can't remember her name, and she was trying to pull it back together, so maybe Director Kerr would know if you want to call him, but,
Well, maybe we can try and make an inquiry so that in the March meeting,
Yeah.
we know whether to carry it or whether we can put it back in our account as unobligated funds and then tell them to show back up again if they want money. It's been like 6 years,
Yeah.
or
Well,
maybe
it's
more.
been there as long as I've been on
Yeah,
the
it's
board.
been there a long time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, approval of the treasurer's report. Is there can we entertain a motion for approval? Move to approve by Bochet,
second,
seconded by Mullally. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Okay. Item number 9 is 319 project update, and that is by me. We finally, last Monday, got a notification from DANR that the contract was coming. The contract has arrived. I'm currently trying to work with the committee to get something organized so that we can present it to DANR to get their opinion to move forward. We do kind of have an outline of a plan to move forward, and we plan to move forward and execute so that we get involvement. I know the way this is kind of drug out, and with probably my leadership, that we are probably behind schedule on where we should be on this. But with the contract, we hope to move forward and to follow through.
I don't remember what we did in terms of a contract when we did the Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant. Do we need some kind of board authorization for you to sign that contract, or is it a foregone conclusion that since we applied for the grant that you sign it, or even without review, or, I mean, how does that work? I don't know. I can't remember the BOR deal. I know we talked a lot about the funding on it, and I think we had some kind of board action on signing that big contract, but I just don't recall offhand.
Yeah, I do not recall offhand on the direct action on that, but I would assume since we had applied for the funding, that we would agree to the funding as is and take the contract, because if we tried to change the contract, the likelihood of the funding would evaporate.
Have you signed the contract?
I have signed a copy of it. Has it been sent out? It has not been sent, because if the chairmanship would change, they have me as the chair currently, so I signed it prior just to make sure that everything was above board, so we didn't have to go back to them and say, can you put X person in there, was my logic. But it's not sent, it's still in possession. So.
Well, just so there's no question about it, I'd move that we authorize the chair to sign the Project 319 contract with the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources and whatever else they're gonna throw in there this year.
I would second that.
Okay, seconded by Young.
You did sign that in ink, correct? Just checking.
Yes, sir. Non-blood though. Because my concern is that if I was not chair after this meeting, that may cause a whole nother headache. Discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor state by stating aye.
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 All those opposed, same side. Next item is a BOR Water Smart Grant, 1 year no cost extension. Due to the shutdown, the BOR is a little bit behind where they want to be in the project. So they had reached out to us to request a 1 year extension so that they could have more time to finish up their part of the project so that we can finish up our part of the project, which is the stakeholder outreach after we get BOR approval of the comments. It's pretty much a formality of just giving them more time to actually do their job on this contract. And so there is another letter drafted that just states requesting the 1 year extension per what they requested us, but since it has to come off of our letterhead for the request, so is there a motion to approve the 1 year extension?
So moved.
Moved by Young, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Coth. Discussion on the item?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Is the funding, I can't remember what it was called, where we submit our request, is that affected at all?
No, it's
Okay.
just buys us more
So
time.
that doesn't expire, okay.
Yeah. So basically what had happened is they were supposed to have, BOR was supposed to have their part of the assessment done in December. We're still waiting on it. They're about a month behind today. And they're hoping to have it by the end of January, which then kind of is rolled in all the other items. Okay. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 11. I think this is the most I've ever had on an, oh,
Do you need to ask a nay
oh,
or not?
all those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now I got it. So,
Good job, Lee.
I sent that request in yesterday, and right now in my inbox, I haven't logged in yet, I got an email from Grant Solutions that says your grant has been awarded. So I haven't logged into it yet, but I'm assuming that's either can't be the 319 because we haven't sent that back to get it signed by the state. So that one's not active, so it has to be that 1 year extension's already gone through just today.
They told us it would take 4 months
Yeah.
for it to actually
So
be approved,
I'll log in tomorrow and see.
Wow.
But
That's
I was,
almost impossible.
but there is a notice
All those
from
people
Grant
that do
Solutions
that.
that
Yeah.
our award has been granted, that's what it says.
So we'll see what happens on this. Item number 11, Pennington County Conservation District obligation removal from ledger. So I had formulated a letter. I tried one more email attempt before I was about to send the letter. I got a response from the Conservation District after I tied in about 3 different directors that I could find email addresses for. And they said that the period open for the project was from 2021 to 2024, and that no other project was inbound or in the planning stages, so therefore we could remove it. So that is to report, and I think next time maybe a visit would have been probably quicker, so I do apologize for the delay on that one. Okay, item number 12 is discuss.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
is that just taken off our list now, or it's just automatically canceled?
I would say that it has been requested to be removed and stated, so we can probably do a formal motion, or we can take it off through the administrative process with the notification of the email.
We actually just approved the treasurer's report,
Right.
and it's off the ledger.
Yeah, it's zeroed
Okay.
out.
Yeah, and we
Right.
approved that last time to give them until January to remove it from the ledger in our last
Okay,
meeting.
thanks.
So.
Okay. Item 12 is discussion of meeting recording equipment, and that is Director Mullally.
When I started as admin in 2019, we had something similar to what we have now, except there were only 2 mics. But the system right now records the audio, runs it into a mixer, and then the software takes that and also records the screen. So you've got basically the audio and then whatever is on the screen at the time. Then I upgraded to 2 more mics and a bigger mixer. And then there was an amplifier, which Larry doesn't always use because the main reason for it was when people would call in. But we discussed, there's a system called an OWL, which is a East Dakota Water Development District has one. Rapid City Sustainability Committee has one, and it's a little cylindrical thing with cameras in it and a microphone. And you would put it in the middle here, and it would kind of figure out who's talking, and you can, you'd probably want to zoom into it if you had something like that, just because it's convenient for people. Or you can, even Zoom allows you to dial in with a phone. But Director Kerr and I went down to the Rapid City Sustainability Committee meeting and talked to David Holland and looked at it. And if we went with what they have, it's called an OWL 4 Plus. It's about $2,000. And he recommended we get the expansion microphone, so in addition to the microphone that's built in, there's another one you plug into it. And the expansion microphone is about $250. And then if you want a case, there's a case, different cases available, but the case for about $200. So for the complete system, we're talking just under $2,500. So I guess my thoughts are, if I were starting with a blank slate, that's what I would go with. But we already have this, so that adds a little weight to that. So I would kind of defer to what Administrator Stetler thinks. I don't want to micromanage how he does the meetings, but you could potentially sell some of this equipment too. So I don't know what you think, Larry, about what, if
Well,
you've gotten better used to it now, or,
This is the second time without that big speaker, and that has allowed these microphones to be turned up significantly, and there's been no problem with the sound. So as far as just recording and being able to post the audio, with this, it's working fine. So that doesn't necessarily solve the phone-in problem,
Yeah.
though. So that'd be the only thing that's not really in here right now, because we could put a phone up against that and it would record,
sure.
but it might be hard to hear.
We'd have to all speak up for the benefit of the person on the phone.
Unless there's a cone amplifier, that's something you can use for the phone.
Just a comment. When I used to go to these remote meetings out in North Dakota with various kinds of water districts, I bought a $100 deal. It's one of those, I don't know what, they make them, different companies make them. The one I own is a JBL, and it's kind of made for a little music boombox. But it can connect to, via Bluetooth to your phone. And so I use that as a conference phone for the directors at the meeting back to the office in Minneapolis, for example, when we needed to have somebody on the phone that wasn't present. And you can turn that sucker up until it blows you out of the room. It's like $100 for a Bluetooth connection for a telephone that would be very easy to understand, and might be an alternative if this all other thing is working, relatively well.
Are there any meetings in North Dakota that aren't remote?
Well, this one was pretty remote. It was in Beach, so about 5 miles from Montana.
They also have a West Dakota Water Development District up there.
Yeah. Anyway, it worked really well for
I
me.
think that would help, except I don't know if it would help the person on the phone hearing. But
Well, it's a two-way deal, and so the guys in Minneapolis, they never had any trouble here. And it's like a
Well,
big magnifier for, I can bring it in if you wanna test it sometime. It's,
I mean, that'd be great.
it's $100,
Yeah.
or it was $100. Maybe it's $125 now.
Having a Bluetooth speaker, and especially in a conference call system, even as that, would allow probably the audio for the call-in person.
Mhm.
The video, that would be a little bit different. Does the OWL provide, like, if they were to log into the OWL, would they be able to see what is being recorded as well?
It would be, what you'd probably want to do is set up a Zoom meeting and do it that way, then you can share the screen.
Okay.
So people remote, how Zoom is, you can
Yeah.
share our screen here probably most of the time, but then other people could share their screen, so Rapid City Sustainability Committee has some meetings recorded that you can listen to, but it's like what you would expect for a regular Zoom meeting.
Okay. No, Barry from the audience.
Just a point of information, the Black Hills Environmental Coalition just bought an Owl 3, and I think they gave 13 something for the Owl 3, and they bought the mic for 250
Okay.
something.
Okay.
That's maybe a lower variant.
And I'm not sure why he uses OWL 4 versus
It's
3.
probably a newer version. I don't know.
So the OWL system would solve the problem with calling in, so you could hear the person on the phone and they would be able to hear, just like a Zoom system, right?
Yeah.
But we'd
Yeah.
have to share our screen of the recording in that Zoom call. We'd have to utilize Zoom to make this work, correct?
Probably, that would be the best way, I think. And with Zoom, you can just hit record,
Right.
and it just, whoever happens to be using the screen, that will be what's, probably just record what you would see here.
And we'd have to get a Zoom account then to allow for our meetings longer than an hour.
Yeah, probably. We have an account that's just for limited use, but
Well,
that's, yeah.
that would just be an added expense. I know it's a monthly expense, just so we're considering that with our costs.
Yeah, and maybe you get more participation if you let people Zoom in.
I think it would be a bonus. It'd be,
So like I said, I'm kind of an agnostic on it. Apparently it's not urgent. So,
So even trying the speaker idea for March, or as a possibility as a test, maybe not during the March meeting, but maybe before the meeting, just to see how
what
it's.
Director Koth was saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
See what happens, and if it's not bringing the results, maybe we can look into looking further of what the OWL can do in size and space.
Mhm.
How big is that conference room usually with
It's
sustainability?
about like this.
Okay, so so
And I was on last night, I zoomed in and Heidi was talking and her voice is real low, so it was hard to, still doesn't pick up as well as you would like, but I'd say 95% of the time it was fine.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
have we assumed that we're gonna keep recording?
That is still technically up in the air, because we had talked about it last meeting, and the board had kind of stated that they enjoyed having the recording as the session, so no movement was made to stop recording at this time, and then there was.
I mean, we started doing this because of that messy board that we used to have, and everybody questioning who said what, when, why. Isn't that the reason why it started?
I wasn't around when they went to it. I was told they just kind of wanted to be more transparent and open to the public.
Do we know, do we get a lot of public listeners that click on the website to listen to it? Is there any way to figure that out?
usually,
Well, I can look right now if you want. If you wanna see.
Okay?
Occasionally I get a call from somebody that listens after it's posted. And I use it.
I've used it on
I've
a fair
used,
number of occasions, referencing back.
Okay, December meeting, 3 views. October meeting, 4 views. Back to the summer, 19 to 26. 20 and 8. So 28, 48, 68. So 70 over the course of last year.
okay,
I can tell you 2 of those in December and October were mine.
okay, so it helped you.
Actually, it didn't.
Oh. I guess again, I think it protects us in a way because you know how minutes are, they're subjective and the minutes are not a transcript, so I would still want to see it continue.
any other discussion on the item? Okay,
So everybody agrees with what Director Mullally just said currently? So we're gonna-
I think
I do.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it's that critical, but
I don't either, but if the consensus is to do it,
yeah, I feel
And
like,
I'm
at
thinking that this right here seems to be working fine, and with a box to amplify,
yeah, and
Yeah,
I,
that
just-
might solve the issues.
I'll just give it to you or bring it or whatever, and you can, it's just
Yeah.
an app that you download to your phone, and then you Bluetooth it, and then you
Okay.
do whatever you want to
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
because it will provide probably amplification of the speaker on
Yeah.
the phone,
Yeah.
but if the mic is good enough, it should pick up everything that's being said.
Yeah, so they shouldn't have a problem hearing.
Yep, so as long as we don't put it by the clock.
You
or-
might have to put it out in the middle, you know,
Yeah.
the little device, which is like 2 inches in diameter and 6 inches long.
Okay.
And I've used stuff like that before, and
Yeah.
it usually works
Yeah,
pretty well.
good, good.
Yeah, another quick thing on the owl, you'd want to have a little, you know, I'll call it a TV tray or something in the middle here to elevate it. And maybe something for the external mic, I'm not sure, so. A few little details there that would have to be looked at too.
Okay, item 13, it's a request for funding for the ranch at Black Cat Pond Reclamation Project. And we have
Robin?
Robin here from the Black Gap community.
Yes.
You're the president.
Actually, I'm the treasurer
Treasurer,
of the
sorry.
HOA board.
Okay.
So just wanted an opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, before you start, Robin,
Yeah.
I would add that I also have I suppose, a double conflict of this in that
Oh.
my wife is now the president of the homeowners association board.
Well, thank you, Scott, and thank you, everybody, for allowing us to come and talk with you today. To start off, I just wanted to quick apologize with the holidays and everything going on. I did miss last month's meeting. I misunderstood, so I have no excuse other than just to apologize for my error, and I appreciate you seeing me today. So we basically are revisiting, still working towards trying to reclaim our pond. We have done a little bit more testing and digging into some details, as well as revised some of our original plans to reclaim the pond. We have determined that there's quite a bit of sediment. There's 80 to 95 inches of sediment that has come down from the watershed basin over the course of the last several years since the pond was created in the 1930s. So we just want to reclaim that before we lose that, get the pond under better supervision and maintenance long-term to be able to keep the pond and turn it into the lush feature that the HOA and the animals and everything could benefit from. So basically, we are looking for the first part. We're focusing on the first part, which is to get the pond cleaned out. Our plan is to drain the pond, channel the water, and the watershed to the edge of the pond to allow for us to dredge out the existing sediment and stuff. Do a major excavation of approximately 3 to 4 acres. We probably won't return it to the exact size that it was before, just try to control the cost a little bit. So we're gonna focus on 3 to 4 acre rectangular section that the pond resides on, the majority of the pond along the dam area. And then we need to, we're planning on removing that material, and then we'll need to transport it to a place off-site where it can no longer get into the watershed or the channel area, so that it does not have we do not have the risk of it going downstream or settling again. Along with that, then we want to repair all the edges and replace vegetation, plant some trees, etc., and then get it under a maintenance plan. All of that together, we've worked with contractors locally, as well as we've had quite a bit of conversation and done some design work with Terrasite Designs here in Rapid City. And we've come up with a pretty good plan with a subtotal for those plans to be around $206,000. And we added a little bit of contingency up in that for unexpected items, which brings us around $226,000. And our plan is to go to the residents, ask the residents for an increase in our HOA dues and do some private, possibly donation collections, etc., with business area business folks, and to get the total down to an area that we would come up with 70-30 split, where the HOA would commit to paying $158,620 worth of the expense, and we are asking the Water District to consider 30% of that cost at $67,980 to help maintain it long-term and get the sediment issues and stuff under control so that it doesn't continue downstream and potentially move into the Rapid Valley water area. So with that being said, that's a pretty quick overview of what I have written in the proposal here, so I'm open to any questions that you have that you'd like to ask.
Has any of the project that you have in the timeline started? Any of the drainage of the pond area, or is the pond still full currently?
At this point, the pond is full. It is at a lower depth right now, just based on water and et cetera and things, but we have not started any draining. We didn't want to actually do any draining until we had a commitment that we were going to move forward. So the timeline may change a little bit because of that, and put us towards the end of next summer when we would start, and then work through the excavation and all that through the winter next year. And our main reason for wanting to do the excavation and stuff in the winter is just because of the amount of sediment that we have determined is in there. We're a little concerned about heavy equipment and sinking, et cetera. And so the recommendation of the engineers as well as the contractors was to do that work in the winter months when the ground is sturdier and frozen, et cetera. So.
Thank you. Your previous grant request was $281,000,
Yes.
and you've got that down to $226,000. Is that because of the size? You reduced the size of the affected area?
Yes, we reduced the size, and then some of the work that was in the previous proposal, we have actually taken care of. The other proposal also included some work on the dam and some repairs of the culverts, and we have actually proceeded with that and cleared that. The dam is now up to state regulations, it's completely cleared and being maintained on a regular basis. And the culvert areas and downstream watershed erosion has been addressed. So that helped with that area. And then the other big part was reducing the size of it to get it a little bit more under control as far as cost and alleviate some of the work area additional costs based on one area that we would have to do a lot of excavation because there's a little bit of a sandbar type hump or whatever from previous excavations that weren't removed from the area and all that. So we're gonna avoid that area. So,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
How many people do you think will utilize this once you have it done?
Oh, great question. Well, in our resident area, there is approximately 130 homes. And so if, let me see here, if we take that times the average occupancy, we're thinking there's probably gonna be around 400 to 500 along with, you know, additional family members and children, et cetera, guests that will potentially be using it throughout the year.
Would it be open for public use as well?
This is a private area at this point, so this would not be public use at this time.
Okay. And you plan on keeping that at 6 foot depth?
Yes, we, currently, the depth is around 2 to 3 foot because of all the sediment. Our plan is to get it down to the 6 foot depth, although we are going to, one of the objectives is to vary the depth in a couple of different places. And the main reason for that is to facilitate spawning of fish and things like that. That's one of the design criteria. That's been suggested to us, is that we have a couple of areas that are like 9, 10 foot deep holes that fish can spawn and then overwinter in. So we are going to change the depth design just a little bit, but the majority of it overall will be around 6 foot.
Yeah, that's where I was going with the next question, if you're gonna stock fish and,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we'd
you.
like to be able to get as much wildlife back in the area as possible, make the area conducive for that, and then provide fishing and that type of stuff for the residents.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Well, I like the changes that you've made, you know, I'm really supportive of this. You know, I guess one of the questions that's a little unclear to me, you're asking us for 30% of the cost, you know, which I think is, you know, in my opinion, very reasonable. It's a much better ratio than the first time we saw this, but the thing I'm a little unclear on, it sounds like you have not raised your homeowner fees yet. Are you committed to the 70% that's shown on paper here, or is there not necessarily a firm commitment there?
At this point, we don't have the commitment complete. We intend to meet with our homeowners. Before we meet with the homeowners, the first time we talked about this last year, the homeowners were very interested in if we were gonna be able to get some assistance. And so the plan this time is to get feedback from your group and then meet with the homeowners, let them know that we have or have not gotten assistance, and then present that number to them at that time.
So in terms of how we would approach this, you know, like I say, I'm supportive, but would we be thinking of making motions that would be, you know, contingent on you coming up with your end of the funding, or?
I think that's a fair expectation, because if the HOA doesn't make the commitment that we're gonna do this, then there should be no
Right, no burden to us.
No commitment from the water district to move forward.
Right, I wouldn't want to micromanage your fees, you know, say, well, you need, let's say you're gonna raise your fees by $1 a month, well, that may not be enough. What level is enough, I don't know, and really I don't care. The main thing is, I mean, I'm personally, you know, supportive of providing the share that you've asked for if the homeowners group can come up with their share.
Okay.
Our fees are pretty low right now.
Yeah, And I just put the numbers in that, about $100 a month, would cover it within a year with 140 homes.
And that's off the top of my head without having the actual numbers in front of me. We were thinking that we would be doubling our dues for a year or two to cover our expense.
I just want to make sure it was doable.
Yes.
Well, and there'd be various ways to do it. You could spread it over several years if you've got a way to get a loan or some such thing. You know, again, that's
Yep,
the
and that's
business
a
of your
good
group,
question.
not
and
ours.
We have talked to our financial lender, and that is a possibility. So we would more than likely move forward if we get the approval from the board. We would move forward with a loan from our financial institution so that we can get the work done right away, and then pay that loan back as soon as possible through homeowner dues.
Director Milan?
So you call this a recreational pond. Apparently people will be fishing in it.
Yes.
What else will it be used? People be getting in it?
Non-motorized type use, kayak, canoe.
Okay.
A lot of people do that. In the winter, they could potentially ice fish. They play hockey, skate, that type of stuff.
Okay, because you talk about E. coli here, so you want to clean that up.
Yes,
Okay.
and thank you for bringing that up, because we have noticed there have been some varying levels of E. coli, and we do have one of the people on our project teams is an environmental scientist, and he has done some testing, and he suspects that it may have something to do with either an agricultural farm that is right close to the pond, or it may be something upstream. But his recommendation is the complete, the water chemistry is gonna completely change after we dredge it and basically excavate it and start over. So their recommendation is to see what happens with that water, and then if we see the presence of E. coli after all of the sediment and debris, et cetera, is removed from that area, then we have a method documented where we are going to start doing tests every 10 feet to see where that gets introduced, and at that point in time, we'll address the presence of E. coli and determine what the source is.
And will there be a mechanism after the work is done to maintain? Would you like continue the HOA fee, maybe at a reduced rate for the continuing, so that it
Yes,
doesn't get as
along-
bad as this?
Exactly, yeah. Long-term, what our plan is after we have it completely cleaned out, there is a section that I mentioned before that needs to be excavated and stuff, and that our intention is to, once it's cleaned up and back to the state that we want it, we're going to look at putting in a sediment forebay, and then doing some regular maintenance that's gonna control the amount of sediment that's coming down the watershed, and then also on a monthly basis, testing the water, making sure that the quality of the water stays at the levels that we need for people to be able to use it for recreational use and safely. Yes,
Do you have any idea how much sediment is going into the watershed now into the Rapid Creek?
right now, a lot of it is stopped in the pond because of the dam, so it's really just collecting in that area. At times where the level of the water increases high enough where it goes through the spillway culvert areas, it does proceed downstream to our adjacent neighbor has a small pond, and then on from there to Rapid Valley Creek. So, our hope is, our intention is to not let that sediment continue completely downstream and stop at the forebay and use that as a mechanism to keep that under control. I don't know on an annual basis at this point how much comes down that area. So, yes,
Go ahead, Tom.
I looked at the Google map just out of interest, and maybe you have a better number, but it looked to me like it was 6 or 7 miles maybe from your pond to Rapid Creek as the crow flies. Is that right?
I think that is about right, if
Okay.
I remember my numbers correctly.
Thanks.
Back to your E. coli issue, seems like perhaps there was earlier discussion, are the I assume all the homes in the subdivision are on septic tanks, is that
Yes.
correct? Is that a perceived potential source?
There have been some questions about if it is a septic system. We've had varying opinions from the engineers that we've talked to about whether that is the source or not. And that is part of why they recommended we do a every 10-foot test, because if it is some sort of septic runoff, then when that E. coli becomes introduced into the stream from the very beginning of the development, we'll be able to identify that particular resident's septic area and be able to address it at that point. So,
So you say every 10-foot test, you mean testing the little stream that runs through there every 10 feet?
I
or-
think it's,
It sounds-
I may be corrected, it may be 100 feet, now that you say that, I'm thinking about that. I think it was like every 100 feet we were gonna do a test, and if that number changes and increases, then we, the environmental scientists that we're working with said, then we'll be able to, from that point, use other methods to, further, identify where that source is.
Certainly every 10 feet would seem like overkill from
Okay, yeah, now that, after you said that, I was like,
armchair
wait, I think it was every 100 feet. And then from there, we would be able to tell where we are and do a little bit more specialized testing from certain areas to identify that source.
Well, I don't think it's a deal breaker for me, but do you have any knowledge, recollection of what sort of levels of E. coli we've been looking at?
Oh, that's a good question, and I can get you those numbers. I remember, I don't have them handy at this moment. I remember that they were at a level, and it depends on, we've done testing 3 or 4 times, and half of the testing it came up a little bit high, but within state levels, and the other few times it was just above state level, considered unsafe for swimming, unsafe for immersion. So I want to say their number, there was like it was in the 200s, but
Well, that's really the kind of the key ingredient, in terms of using the water. Obviously, it's not going to be a drinking water source where any E. coli is basically a red flag, and with whether limited contact or full immersion, those are the standards. But certainly E. coli tends to be quite transient. I mean, you could test it many times, you'll get a lot of different numbers oftentimes.
That is what we have experienced.
It certainly in the long run would make a difference on whether or not people would be inclined to swim there, but beyond that, most of your other uses, you can certainly picnic around the area and whatnot, and anyhow, just kind of curious there.
All right, thank you.
Director Milan?
Yeah, I assume the county requires septic inspections every
Yes.
5 years. Have they been passing in general?
From what I understand, yes, we have.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Well, I could probably make a motion if we're at that point. I could certainly make a motion to approve the requested funding of $67,980, contingent on the Blackjack Group coming up with their share of the funding.
a motion on the floor by Director Driscoll is to provide $67,980 provided to the HOA funding for the Black Gap Pond reclamation. Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded by Malali.
but I wonder, do we want to specify the HOA amount in the motion?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay, friendly amendment, is to,
We'll just weave it into the current one.
yep,
So you'd put in parens for the homeowner, 158, 620.
Okay. Discussion on the motion? Director Young?
Historically, has this board done cost share with private developments?
I think there was one for a water system over by Heisiga, if I remember correctly, but that was before my time.
That would have been the most recent, the upgrades to Heisiga system. It's been quite a few years since West Dakota has seen them, but West Dakota, along with many other water development districts, there had been a track record of providing funding for assistance with drinking water systems, oftentimes a well and distribution system, typically done through the state swarms program, where the state would be providing, you know, additional assistance also, and you know, that dates back probably 15 to 20 years, and beyond that it was really a pretty active program, and in those cases West Dakota actually often helped these entities in developing their swarms proposals. So we haven't seen a lot of it of late, but you know, in the long term, that's a pretty typical thing, and this is a little different twist on it.
Correct. Cool.
I guess I'm sympathetic to your predicament out there, but with ownership of a private pond, it also comes responsibilities for long-term maintenance. If the numbers you provided to us are, you know, even close to being right in the ballpark, you know, if it was built and I used the year 1935, that's like 91 years. And so if you've got 80 or 90 inches of sediment, there's not a significant amount of sediment coming in there on an annual basis. Maybe an inch, you know, I don't know, it could be variable depending upon, you know, different times, you know, on our, basically our water cycle and how much might be disturbed from the upstream watershed, but that's not a whole lot of sediment over that period of time. If you're right, and I looked at the Google map right, we're 6 or 7 miles from Rapid Creek, so the benefit to sediment delivery to Rapid Creek, you know, in a reduction, which would be basically our biggest concern, you know, public water, I see that as very minimal or almost not there because of that distance and because of the pond actually capturing that 1 inch per year average. So the other part of it, just as an information item, and I don't want to, you know, dispute your experts, but I'm a retired fisheries biologist, and a 9 or 10 foot depth variable along with a 6 foot depth is going to be very problematic for any kind of a recreational fishery, given the various cycles of drought and ice and wetness, et cetera, that we have. It's going to be very problematic to establish a fishery there. 15 feet is probably what we would consider from a minimum depth to account for, you know, drought cycles, ice conditions, et cetera, to allow for, you know, maintenance of any kind of a permanent fishery. So I'm not going to be able to support this. I think private pond ownership comes with responsibilities, and I don't see any kind of real benefit to sediment reduction in Rapid Creek, which would be this board's main concern. But I understand your predicament, but with ownership comes responsibility.
I can, I respect that opinion. 2 items I can add to that are, as far as the fishing, there may be a different depth, because I'm not the professional, so a 15-foot depth may be something that we ultimately end up doing when we get to that point. Currently we have fish. They have been able to winter successfully, so I think that even increasing the depth will just increase the amount of aquatic life that we have in the pond, and we can go from there. As far as the sediment, you know, Rapid Creek does have a sediment issue, and the fact that Black Gap has a pond, private or not, it is, and it may be minimal, we are helping assist control of that sediment issue. And without really 100% engineering input and testing and et cetera to exactly identify how much sediment we are catching and how much of it has been happening over the course of the last 90 years. Maybe the sediment has increased over the last 30 years with development, et cetera, and it will continue to increase, which is just going to make your Rapid Creek issue all the worse. So regardless of the amount, we are catching some and we are assisting. And if we can't reclaim this pond, then I think it would go away and all of that sediment will move downstream, because our option, if we can't save the pond, would be to return the area into the state in which it was before the pond. So there is that to consider as well. So I appreciate that, though.
Director Milan?
An example of a project we funded that's private is the Trinity Lutheran Park. We had actually 2 grants for that, so I think there is precedence for this. I would support this request.
I think the difference between these two projects is the Trinity Eco Park is a public space. You know, it may be privately owned, but it's a public space.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of, public taxpayer money for private deals either. I went back and looked at our mission statement, and the West Dakota Water Development District supports entities that furnish financial, educational, or other aid necessary to any project within the district that encourages better utilization of our water resources through water conservation, proper water management, or the evaluation and protection of our water quality, putting water beneficial use for domestic, public, or municipal, industrial, and irrigation, as well as recreational purposes. And it kind of fits minimally in that, but like I said, I'm not a real fan of not having it be public and open to anyone to utilize either, so.
Yep, and I can appreciate that viewpoint. The residents in our area are taxpayers,
Right,
and so, that's a double-edged sword, in my
Yeah.
opinion, so.
Director Driscoll?
I agree with Director Coth's perspective that in terms of, reduction of sediment delivery, it's minimal. The effect is essentially nil. To me, I really don't see that as, my reason for being able to support this. To me, this is one of many uses of water, in this case, recreational, and we weigh this, we weigh that, and to me, whether or not it's the amount of sediment being retained is minimal. I guess I'm just supportive of the fact that we could help assist with better use of the water. The private end of it, Trinity, High Sega water upgrade, so that's totally 100% within the subdivision that it's being used. Certainly the Trinity, it's a public space. The water system is not. So I guess my support, I'm still supportive.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing no more discussion, the motion on the floor is to provide $67,980, a 30% contingent on the HOA confirming commitment of the $158,620, the 70% of the commitment funding of the Black Gap Pond reclamation. All those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side.
I
Aye.
Roll call?
Okay, so this now is item 12.
Yes.
Okay, Koth,
No,
O'Shea,
Yes.
Driscoll,
Yes.
McGregor abstains, Mullally,
Yes,
Young,
No,
Mack,
No.
Klein,
No,
and Kerr is absent. So that's 3 yes, 4 no.
Thank you for your presentation. It was
bet.
lovely, and I
Thank you.
wish you the best of luck on it.
Okay.
Okay. Item 14 is an informational item, update from the Erosion Control Committee, and that is Director Driscoll.
Well, I guess for starters, I've got a slideshow, but any input from the committee members before we talk about the progress we've made, and we're gonna go over, and we'll have an opportunity at the end to provide input if you care to.
I would just recommend, if you haven't already done it, for the committee members, the board members, to visit those sites to look at what has been done and done with free labor.
Seeing no other input, I'll warn you I'll be quick with your fingers, Larry. I'm gonna move through these pretty quick. People have had a chance to view them before, so, on LaCroix, I put in a little bit of a few extra slides because we're gonna be voting on, some additional funding here, so this really shows you what it looked like. This photo was in 2023. The 4 rows of wattles at the top of the slope were installed in 2021, and there wasn't much change between those periods. Really, you can see that it's kind of a unique area. Instead of being total blowout, there's quite a bit of it that's sort of broken vegetation. The clumps of vegetation that are sort of remnant and surrounded by shale that's been blown out. So kind of unique in that respect. So the next slide is from 2021. There was a volunteer crew, and then actually the city brought in, there was about 10 Parks Department people that really made the difference. These wattles were our grow wattles filled with some of the Canyon Lake sediment. And so they're particularly heavy, and we couldn't have done it without them. I'll point out, this is in that upper area, 4 or maybe 5 rows in one area, but you can see an awful lot of bare ground in there, and then just the smattering of vegetation. So the next slide, just another view of it. There's a lot of bareness there, a lot of erosion. Next slide then was 2022, was in June. It happened to be a pretty nice growing condition, and things are looking better there. It always looks better during a good vegetation growth period than the fall of the year when things have just got done going dormant. So next slide is basically just a couple of weeks later, and again, looks pretty good there. So the next slide was 2023, and this was kind of unique. There's a stand of sweet clover that came in basically in that area, above the wattles. I don't know if that's what made the difference or not. Certainly we're catching a little bit of sediment and makes a little bit of a seed bed certainly those sweet clover seeds had to have been there. The vegetation that shows up can be a little bit different each year. Next slide. So that was a little more than a year ago in the fall, when we were getting ready to empty a lot of the yard waste bags, predominantly leaves, and again, in spite of some pretty good growth in some of those years, you can see there's a lot of bare ground in there. Next slide. It's just covered with leaves. Certainly bare ground under there. And I don't have any photos from this year. I couldn't find them. What came in, it really amazed me how well it grew, following the leaf placement, and I always seed it once we've got the leaves in. How much that helps relative to the native seed stock that's there, I'm not sure. But next slide, we're kind of moving into the dirt and seeding operation. This was the Rapid City Wildland Fire crew, and that's their tracked skid steer that was, this was my first experience up close with them, and just how steep of a grade they can operate on, and they do a really nice job. Next slide. I'm just showing, this is the same one as before, but you get a sense there's a number of those bare shale areas. Those are the ones that we targeted for the dirt and the topsoil. When we spread leaves, we typically just avoid those areas because it just isn't going to help. So I probably hadn't mentioned, I'd mentioned at our last meeting, the City Parks Department hauled dirt for our operation and ended up bringing in, their estimate was 72 cubic yards from the stockpile they had at the executive golf course. And then on the lower right of the screen there's that largest bare area. They had put a pile of about 20 cubic yards there from Fitzgerald Stadium back when they'd torn the sod out of there and redone that. So we had a little more dirt there to work with. And that area will show up on the next slide. Then, well, that's the big area up top side. So after the fire crew was done with it, I got a handful of volunteers to help with the wattle placement. We had not gotten that far with the fire crew, and it's kind of catch as catch can with them. This is something that was manageable for our volunteer group. So next slide. There you're looking at that large bare area from the side, and then the next slide, this was a silt fence that had been installed in 2022, and I'm mostly going to point out this is some very steep and just bare shale. It's basically just your weathered bedrock, shale flakes in there. So both to the right side, and then you've got some of it kind of to the left. There's a little bit of broken vegetation there, but the next slide, that's an area that we're targeting with the topsoil. Next slide. By then the blanket had been placed by the fire crew, and getting a few wattles in a couple of key places with our volunteers. Next slide. The silt fences are kind of would be to the left of the couple of pine trees several pine trees in the center. So we've really effectively covered those major bare areas, and we'll see how Mother Nature treats us with the germination and subsequent revegetation. So the next slide, that was it for LaCroix. So moving on to the School of Mines area, that's just southeast of the stadium and just off of St. Joe. That was area 3B in our proposal. Next slide shows the fire crew working in there. We were I wasn't sure how this was gonna go. They thought they'd be able to climb it with their skid steer, and sure enough, they were able to, just barely, but actually it helped once we got a little bit of our dirt down. It would make it easier to proceed farther up that slope. The next slide simply shows it from the side, and basically it was at the pretty much the max. Anything steeper, and at some point that skid steer had come over backwards, which is a bad deal. But there we're able to go up the slope. There's a dirt pile that you can't see behind that trailer, but we're able to go up that slope, and where you can see the workers over there bringing it in, running across the top there where it's level. So we had to carry it a distance, but once you spread it, these guys used to digging fire lines, and they move it around pretty quick. Next slide. There's the finished product, and we did that whole area basically in the morning. I thought it'd probably be an all-day job, and pleasantly surprised that a half a day knocked it out. So from there we actually moved on to Cornerstone, which we'll look at in a minute. That's area 3A, so it's kind of near a parking area, just a little bit farther up the hill. If you continue on that road behind the ramp, we had one load of dirt dumped up there while we were at it, and actually then, so that's two guys from the School of Mines. They provided a rubber tired skid steer, as we had planned, and did the spreading on that on a different day. And then a couple days later I showed up with some blanket, and they provided some manpower. Next slide. Wattles are down, and it's a finished product. So any questions on the mines area, or for that matter the LaCroix area that I blasted through? I don't want to move too fast. Ron?
How many acres do you estimate got treated between the two?
I don't have an estimate of acres on the mines.
Either one, or both?
I've not made an estimate in acres.
Square feet?
I
Square yards?
would have to go back and back out, in cubic yards. Round numbers, the dump truck is holding 15 yards, and we're covering, that's 15 cubic yards. Basically about 1/10 of a yard of material is kind of a guess on what we're trying. So there's roughly 150 cubic yards on the one dump truck. So we could say 400 or 500 cubic yards perhaps at mines. The estimate at LaCroix, it's more like 100 cubic yards total material, so maybe 1,000 cubic yards perhaps. Other questions?
Dan, how does the mines project dovetail with the professors that we funded for their erosion project?
Well, they are the entities, they're the involved parties. They would like to do some research, see how it performs. But they're amongst the same group, so it's the same involved parties.
So there's definitely no new money going into this, right? Other than the grant that we gave them?
Well, the project that we funded was a collaborative project where we're providing manpower, they're providing limited manpower. We were hoping for assistance from the wildland fire crew, and so it's all coming together. So out of a $25,000 authorization, I'd have to look at the budget how much has been expended, and we've got several areas yet to work in. But we've expended $3,000 here, and plus we're expecting a bill for $675 for dirt, so, you know, getting close to $4,000 out of $25,000 that we'd allocated, and we're not quite half done yet, would be my guess. The areas that remain, it kind of subjective what size, but does that answer your question?
And Director
So,
Millar.
Dan, at LaCroix, you dumped the leaves, is that right? The-
Right, we did leaves
was-
at
was-
LaCroix.
Was that on the areas that were recovering already, or was that?
We had done the leaves before the dirt on the partially vegetated area, partial vegetation, partial blowout, partial erosive. So the overall area there, you know, I'd have to pick it apart on Google Earth or something, but the sum total of the area is getting pretty close to an acre. And you know, maybe in round numbers, 20% of it we treated with dirt and blanket and seed, and the other 80% we've been treating with leaves in round numbers. 80-20, 70-30.
So it's kind of an experiment, you're doing different things. So-
Well, to put leaves on the bare shale is not going to be effective. It just it'll slow the erosion for a while, but in the areas where we've got partial vegetation, it's been proving effective, you know, at both LaCroix and Star Village. You know, I've been doing it for a number of years there, and I watch these areas year after year, and they keep filling in places at Star Village where we'd placed wattle some years ago in these partial blowout areas. They're almost 100% recovered. So with LaCroix, you know, it's going to require at least a couple more years of putting leaves in the areas we've been putting leaves. Will that cure it? I'm not sure. You know, we'll know more in a couple of years, but I guess we can talk about those aspects when we get to the funding request on that.
You talk about, you know, this success and stuff in various treatments. What's the pre-project and presuming this stuff grows, post-project sediment reduction to Rapid Creek? Some wild estimate.
I don't have an estimate. You're aware that, you know, you've been talking about needs for estimates, and we've not made estimates. The erosion rates are unknown. In the cases of places like Star Village or Cornerstone, you know, we'll see these head cuts where, you know, there's a visible elevation difference of several feet, you know, suggesting that amount of, you know, erosion over time. The amount of time is an unknown. So, you know, I think it would be useful. There's been discussion that perhaps under the 319 project, we might consider funding an endeavor to really better quantify that. But, you know, I certainly have no estimates to put on the table.
Now, 319 will require us to provide quantitative estimates for benefits.
You were involved with the preparation of the proposal as I, and they had a line item for that, and they eventually decided, you know, not to have us fill that in.
Well, I don't want to go into the weeds on that particular item, but they decided they didn't want to have an estimate on Star Village because they did not have somebody who could run the appropriate estimate. They only had one program, and it was for bank erosion on rivers, and it was inapplicable.
Sure.
So, but they do measure, you know, they measure the EPA which is ultimately the authority, they require estimates of benefits. So we're gonna be stuck with that going forward.
Okay,
So we need to start thinking about that. I mean, I don't know, maybe we can ask our administrator, for some perspective on, these sites and the historic nature of them and the erosive potential, et cetera, because it kind of plays into all of this stuff that we're attempting to, try. But I know that they're long-time circumstances, and they may be not the ones we really want to focus on if we want to try and make a big impact on, improvement to Rapid Creek, since we don't have any idea of really any kind of sediment delivery, that's happening now, and Rapid Creek is not sediment impaired until you get to New Underwood, Farmingdale. So to me, it's kind of, what are we doing other than landscaping? Looks good, and I admire your efforts to generate these workers, because that's a hard thing to do. But I just don't know what we're getting.
do we want to debate this now, or, this is kind of off topic in terms of progress. There's certainly
Sort
no
of.
requirement for us to, in work that we do, to have a quantified sediment reduction. Nowhere in our, improvement of water quality fits within our mission. Does this improve water quality? If you're suggesting that it does not, I wholeheartedly disagree. To what extent we need to quantify, may that come up for 319? I'm all in favor of it. To have better quantification, so we can say, well, this is how much we have reduced. That would certainly be something to work towards.
If you would like to continue your presentation,
Sure.
you're more than welcome to.
So the next slide is the cornerstone. Looking directly into what sun there was, there's a skid steer up there, but the same thing. And those nasty clouds actually aren't smoke, although the skyline fire started up very soon after this. The next slide, we're looking down from below. We picked up again. It was about a week later, and just another bobcat moving up the hill. We're just barely able to climb that slope, but we get there. The next slide, that's looking across at the finished product. If folks are interested, I can certainly, I had detailed estimates of, areas in cubic yards for my own purposes, and, if there's a desire, I can email those later, but, that's certainly ballpark, maybe a quarter of an acre. Three dump trucks went in there, 45 yards. Next slide. This is a figure from the erosion control plan for Star Village. It's hard to see it, but on the very right of the screen, there's a red oval there, and that's an area of kind of patchy vegetation and patchy erosive areas within a pine overstory, and the red area that shows kind of an access area to the lower part of that, where we were moving sediment in there, and then we were taking sediment in from the top also. But that was our area we targeted. We've still got a little bit left to do there. Next slide. That's looking up towards the top, obviously a pretty steep area, just one kind of erosion run there. And for those that have been there, that's where that little trail comes in from our power pole and sediment piles, and that little trail kind of winds right around in there. And so the next slide, kind of a horizontal area in there, blanket, and you'll notice the tree limbs, they're pretty effective in helping hold that blanket down, and then also preventing foot traffic. People aren't going to want to pick their way through it, so there's kind of a dual purpose there. Next slide. This is really for Roy. That was an area where you know, you pointed out one of those silt fences may undercut just a bit, and try to put in a little bit of protection there and see if that'll help or not. Next slide. This was that third of an acre that we topsoiled back in 2021. The bags are filled with leaves. You know, in some cases, you know, especially if I'm working alone, I'll fill them up top and roll them down the hill, and then all I have to do is carry them a little ways to spread them. You know, what's coming in there, that was, I don't know if I put a date on there, that was late November, really pretty green. The next slide shows a close-up. One of the people that had looked at this with me, actually a person from the National Guard talking about possible work with them, thought that this might be sea sedge. It's really a predominant grass in there. I ended up taking it to the South Dakota Extension Office, and they couldn't identify it for sure. They were almost sure it was a sedge, not sure which one, but the next slide, you can't see it in this light, but you know, I dug up a little clump of that and flipped it over, and so we've got about an inch of the sediment from Canyon Lake mixed with compost there, and then beneath it you can see the bare shale flecks, and those roots are penetrating, you know, down into the weathered shale there. And you know, I looked around in terms of whether or not I could get seed for this kind of a grass, not knowing exactly what it is. Well, I can't, but you know, it's pretty amazing, you know, the way this particular material has really become the dominant grass there, and it's in the process of forming soil horizon there. It'll take some time, but you know, I think this area is now stable. So with that, I think the next slide is room for more questions.
Yep, Larry, would you go back to that slide of Skyline Drive, the general one? Right there. Where on that is the city property, and what is it that is the other?
We'd have to pull it up
The
on-
Tasdic.
Well,
I've never been real sure just where the line is
Let's-
between what we're doing with the city and where we're going with Tasdic.
let's look at it.
Are there photos in the packet that are
In
more
the
clear?
packet, if we can find the right page,
Page 18.
probably. Actually, page 15.
Page 15.
Page 15 is the best view of it.
Okay.
So the areas that are shown in orange are Zadik.
Okay.
And then the erosive areas, in that erosive area, all of the rest of it is city. So the blue boundary is the boundary of city property.
I don't see any blue boundary.
The
Well-
light blue?
That's this, turquoise,
Oh,
turquoise
okay.
blue, so
Wow, okay.
the property is, I believe, 13.99 acres, and that's owned by the city, and in round numbers, 4 or 5 acres of that is let's just call it an erosive condition, either eroding or sediment falling out, and you know, not
Okay.
well vegetated. And then the Zadik property is basically 2 acres.
Okay. Thank you.
Say, Dan, on page 19, you have your fences there, your erosion fences. How long have those been there?
Those are the dilapidated fences that were installed decades ago
Okay.
by the previous owners. And at least the bulk of them that you see in those photos.
Okay, so that, all the sediment that's built up and Bowen, those posts and everything has been built up over 20 years, or?
This
Right.
side,
Okay.
which is now
Just,
identified.
I'm just asking, because
Yep.
it might be a
The
way
city
for
owns
us to get an
25
idea of
acres
the
of
rate of, you know,
This
the
is,
erosion by using
Star
some of those
Village.
markers and
That-
figuring out how much they filled up over
That
this
is
amount of
that
time.
way.
That would be one of the many ways where you could
Or,
come
I'm
up
sorry,
with
that's the
estimates.
deep property. This was
You know,
the
they're
old
all,
Wagner property.
they're all loose estimates, you know, those have
That's all.
accumulated some amount of
That's all the
sediment
deep.
over
So that's all
X
Star
amount of
Village.
time, and
And then
then,
it drops off into
you
city.
know, once they reach capacity, then they've been spilling.
Yeah,
city
you
property
see on that
between
corner
those
there
two
where they
cities?
blew out, there's sediment
there's-
coming down
yeah,
right on
so
the
this is,
sidewalk.
Right.
So looking at this is city.
And it goes all the way through here?
Yep. Goes all the way to East Boulevard. So we're looking right here.
How do we end up with this isolated Sadiq
Uh,
ground down?
I don't know. Hey, Dan, that's a
Yeah.
good question for Dan. So that isolated Zadik parcel,
That orange that's shown up there?
Right,
top right of the
Yeah,
screen,
right.
do you have any handle on why that's just an isolated Zadik parcel?
I mean.
They
that-
just happen to own it.
Yeah, that's,
So- Right, I mean, it's under their ownership.
But it's city in between there.
Right, the property that's the city property was purchased by Phil and Yvonne Wager at whatever point in time to prevent development on it. They were concerned about kind of undesirable development, and they chose to purchase it and keep it open.
Hmm.
So I imagine the ownership, Zadik had bought the place from, a previous owner had been a Robert Akers Senior and his wife, and they had owned the bulk of Star Village, and I assume that parcel was just a parcel, that it's not well suited for building on, so. Other questions? Ready to move on? Comments, Roy?
Well, I just let you know that, when we were out there with Kent Cooley,
Right,
I just texted him and asked him about that sedge, if he remembered what it was.
right.
It's threadleaf sedge.
You think's threadleaf sedge?
Huh.
Well, and you know, I had called Kent to see if he knew, and he hadn't recalled then, but there are many varieties of sedge. It sounds like the seed is virtually unobtainable.
Yeah.
I look at the possibility of transplanting some of that stuff, you know, put a few clumps of it up high on slopes.
Were you looking at
Art?
rapid?
How many man hours did you have in this, just in
actually,
December?
Onyx Hunt.
Do you have an estimate of how many man hours were put into the project you just got done?
So that's that isolated.
Because you had quite a crew there, and I know they worked for days.
This is all city.
Well,
And
In
it
terms
just
of the-
circles all of them.
of the dirt and topsoiling,
You can see,
operation.
from overhead how much of that.
you know, there were 4 days with myself, and the crew sizes varied, but let's say six people, counting myself. They usually didn't work a full 8 hours, but if we call it an 8-hour day with mobilizing and whatnot, you know, call it 50 hours for a day, so, you know, 200 hours there, and then, you know, I'm sure I put in another 100 hours of, you know, chasing supplies, you know, getting blanket, wattles, lining things up, whatever, just. And then the volunteers, you know, we had 4 volunteers for 3 hours. They had 12 hours for wattles.
Now, the Zadig property is private, right?
Right,
It's not public property, it's
Right.
private property.
right. Yep, and
Okay.
With no other comments, I will move on to the next item. Next item is a request for funding for $25,000 for the continuation of the Star Village Erosion Control Project, the City of Rapid City, and to Zeke Property Management. This one seems to be yours again, Director Driscoll.
Well, we've been over these quite a few times, so I won't go into a lot of detail. I think the key ingredients are that the funding amount is not to exceed $25,000. Our preliminary split on it would be up to $15,000 for the city property and up to $10,000 for the Zeke property. This would be basically through the current calendar year, and the intent then that the interim plan is written for the interim period until we can begin implementation of 319. And we don't know how far out that will be. You know, the 319 program involves development of a watershed protection plan before design, and bidding, et cetera. In the 3-year 319 program, there is no funding for implementation. So implementation would be at least 3 years out, unless we would speed up that time frame in some fashion. So basically, the way the proposal is written would be up to $25,000 for the current calendar year, which, if that's not spent, could be expended into the next year. Or if we're spending that much and need more, we can come back for additional funding. But one of the questions on a previous discussion was, how about the funding that remains? Would we carry that over, or would we intend that we would take that off the books? And the intent, I think it was laid out, when we transmitted this, but the intent is that we would, the current funding that remains would be taken off the books. In the case of the Parks Department side, actually that all got expended. I guess if we look at the budget sheet, there's an overage on the Star Village side of $800. The Zeke side, there's $2,500 remaining, and basically the intent would be that you could shift that. Total remaining funding is like $1,700, and that would be taken off the books, and we would be starting from scratch. So beyond that, I guess
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve up to $15,000 for continuation of the Star Village Erosion Control Project on properties of the City of Rapid City, but deny further funding for the privately owned properties of Zeke, which, as I understand, is also in bankruptcy.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Seconded by, motion by McGregor, seconded by Young, to provide $15,000 for the continuation of the Star Village Erosion Control Project for the city property only. Would that be a correct statement, or did I misparaphrase yours?
No, that's for the city property portion of the erosion control. That's correct.
Okay, motion on the floor. Discussion on the motion.
Well, just for the record, I won't be able to support that motion because, as all proposals that we've seen come forward during 2025 and now 2026, they've been developed contrary to our bylaws. Our chairman has not been involved in any way, shape, or form with direct negotiations with a potential partner, which is and was what was part of the intent of amending our bylaws in December of 2024. So that was, the intent was to be sure that we had appropriate cost share mechanisms we had completed budgets that had estimates for the labor that might be contributed by the various potential partners. We were looking at trying to generate basically some benefits that would be accrued to the receiving water from any of these projects, and we still don't have any of that. It just doesn't seem like we're just continuing along the same path as we were in December of 2024. There's been no real changes. The implementation or the establishment of the erosion committee has led to no real changes in what we see. There's no real accountability. As treasurer, I see some of these bills. One of the last bills was for enough seed to seed 11 acres of ground at the high seeding rate of broadcast seeding. We're seeding, fractions of acres or maybe a couple of acres. I'm not sure if we know what we're doing. And I think it's probably a good time to segue to some of the criteria that we're going to be seeing for 319, which includes some benefit measure in terms of reduction of sediment to the Rapid Creek. As we know, Rapid Creek is not sediment impaired until we hit several points downstream at Farmingdale, so that's why we have to do these projects to estimate the benefit. And all these things need to be, really kind of, I think, put into the hands of the landowner. We've done some things now that are probably going to be relatively easy to carry on from the city. The city has sort of participated, at least indirectly, from the wildland fire crew, so they know what can be done. So it's not like it's something that's completely unfamiliar to at least some of the city entity. And so I think it's a good time for us to segue over to the city until such time as we do those protection plans and we really find out what is going to be something to do in the Rapid Creek watershed that's going to be of major benefit to preserving the quality of Rapid Creek in terms of water quality.
Any other comments on the motion? Yes.
I would just in response, I concur very much with Ron's concerns about all of this, but I view this more as a continuation of something that would be grandfathered in and not as a new project proposal, but simply expanding on what we've already done as just a continuation of an ongoing project that we've had for some time. But I cannot support any more expenditures on the private property portion of this project.
Any other comments or concerns? Yes.
I'm gonna make a substitute motion to fund it at up to $25,000 as proposed. I, appreciate that, Director McGregor, and with the second, there's support for the Rapid City owned property. And if that's how we would end up going, it's kind of workable. I guess there's two main factors at play. One of the factors that I'm just going to take people to the specific wording on it. I've got a previous packet there. On page 13, that I'll look for the wording. Basically, the city of Rapid City grants access for us accessing the Zadik property, and the Zadik. I was looking at the 3-page summary. I've got to go to page 14 and probably 15. Okay, so Scott had it highlighted. As part of this collaborative effort, Parks will grant full access as needed for any and all efforts on adjacent Zediq properties with reciprocal access rights granted by Zediq. So virtually the entirety of everywhere we work on the city, we have to cross the Zediq property, both on the north end, that little 2-acre parcel, and then on the southern side of it. So I'm reluctant to, cut Zediq out of the operation in that fashion. We depend on them for access, and I don't think that's the right thing to do. The concerns regarding bankruptcy, we've closed out the agreement through the end of calendar year 2025. We're going to need to issue a bill to Zediq for the expenditures that we've made on their property. They'll be billed for 10% of the 2,500 or so. And I had publicly stated before, and I'll state it again, that if Zediq is unable to cover that bill because of bankruptcy, I will cover it out of my pocket. And furthermore, I would make the same commitment for our future efforts. Whatever the cost may be, that's up to $10,000 expenditures would be $1,000 reimbursement. I'm happy to spend, commit to that amount to get this work done. So
Mr. Chairman,
that's my
point of
motion.
order, do we have a second on Mr. Driscoll's
We
motion?
do not currently.
I was just gonna say it, I'm gonna stop there and we can ask for a second.
So go ahead.
I'll second.
Seconded by Malali. Discussion on the motion to fund the original request of $25,000 and include both Zediq and the city of Rapid City.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to remind this group that an hour ago, we voted not to fund a project on private property.
Now, my question to you, Director Driscoll, does the work on Zediq, is it needed for the city property to succeed? Or is it that you just need the entrance and exit from the property into the city to actually do the work, or are we actually doing work in there? I know you said there's been expenditures, but can one project, other than the ability to transfer into the other project area, is that the only thing could that happen, where it's just work is done on the city property, but as long as we have an agreement to cross their property boundary to do the work? Or is it that if you put something down, it's going to into the Zediq property from the city, or from the Zediq property into the city? So, for example, like when you talk about rolling the leaf bags down, if you had access to do that from the Zediq property, but not actually improving the Zediq property, could that be done?
Let me try to answer it. Let's look at the figure on page 15. So the Zediq property on the southern end, all the small parcels, that's along the head cut. Most of that has already been treated. In many cases, the head cut goes right along that line, and there's a fair amount of the erosive area at the very top that's on the Zediq property, and most of that has already been treated, and we have not had expenditures there for quite a while. So there's not much that would get done there. So on the 2-acre parcel on the north end, that's next to the apartment complex, that area, it's desirable to reclaim that area. That's part of the plan. If we were not to work in there, the city end of it would stand alone. I mean, by reclamation on the upper part, will stop the sediment movement down there, and things would improve. So it really, I guess maybe if you boil it down, it's really the access that is the big issue. I'm reluctant to, end up with a project where we tell Zadig that we're not gonna work on their property, and they say, well, in that case, just stay out. So that's my reluctance, and I guess, again, in terms of the cost, yes, it's on private property. We funded other things on private property, and in terms of if there's a bankruptcy issue, I'm happy to support, cover that cost.
Any other questions?
I guess just from what I hear, that the reason I would support the substitute is because it sounds like it might be a showstopper. The whole thing might collapse if we don't, so that's where I'm at.
Have you gotten any input from Zadig on use of property or anything about other than, yes, please work on the eroded parts? Like, have they provided any input, comments, anything?
They happily provide the access. I let them know whenever I'm working in there, and actually it's a really small thing, but they've got a pile, it's kind of waste dirt near their office up top, and anytime I'm going over to their area to work, where we've got power poles stored and sediment that we use, we've got dirt piles there. Actually, they've got a dirt pile in that area that we have used from. But I always stop at that dirt pile by their office, and I get a scoop in the Bobcat and take over. We're just always going to need more dirt there. So I regularly communicate with them, let them know, when we're going to be working in there. In terms of input on proposals, there's certainly been none.
Have we heard either what the city or Zadig would do with their reclamated property? Like if this actually got completely soiled up, like, have you heard anything from the city about what they would do with the property, or is it just more of a reclamation project and then it will just be?
The city accepted the property from the Wagers with the intent that it will be a city park. Probably hiking trails, walking trails has been their presumed direction, and they've done nothing more along those lines other than, on a regular basis, the park rangers that they're labeled, you'll see their vehicles up in there keeping the homeless people away, and then routinely, the Parks Department in combination with the Ignite crew will clean garbage out when needed.
So there's no timeline when this might actually be a city park, other than it's a city property that they hope to make a park someday.
There's, around the city reservoirs just west of there's another 12 acres or so that their intent would be to have, more on the order than of 26 acres of park. But I'm aware of no movement in that direction.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, the substitute motion by Director Driscoll, seconded by Mullally, is to fund the original request of $25,000 and which would include the city property and the Zeke property. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side.
Aye.
Motion fails. Now we move back to the original motion by McGregor, seconded by Young, to provide funding up to $15,000 for a continuation of the Rapid City portion of the Stark Village Erosion Control Project. Discussion is open on that motion.
Well, I'll support the substitute motion. You know, it's not, to me, ideal, but
You mean the main motion?
what's that?
Primary motion?
Well, the original,
Yeah.
the original motion.
So you think you can work with that?
Well, we're gonna have to try. I
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, by McGregor, seconded by Young, to provide funding up to $15,000 to the continuation of the Rapid City portion of the Star Village Erosion Control Project, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Okay. Item B, request of funding for up to $5,000 for a collaborative erosion control project at LaCroix Golf Course. That is Director Driscoll and the Erosion Control Committee.
Well, I guess, as we were working in there, it became apparent, quite quickly. I guess when I started, I knew that we'd be, you know, kind of borderline on available funds, and it turns out we overspent by, $400. So I basically got with the committee and said, well, we
What page
we
is
really
it?
should,
26 is the-
you know, look at a proposal for additional funding, and it's in front of you. The total request is for $5,000. Of that amount, we've got an overage of $400 and change that would be covered. I think that we'll probably eventually have an opportunity to provide some cost recovery to the wildland fire crew. I've been up until Sunday on the island of Kauai and rattled their cage on Monday. I hadn't heard back from them in terms of could you give us something a little more definitive? I'm expecting it to be something on the order of $1,000 per day for their efforts. Not a mandatory reimbursement, but to me it's something that really makes sense. So I would look forward to, out of that $5,000, I didn't write it into this proposal because it's a little complicated to do it that way, but that would basically be a retroactive cost. And above and beyond that, this kind of maintenance level things could include some contribution to worker appreciation parties, but those are becoming smaller because we're having fewer volunteers. Certainly there's going to be a little bit of cost of seed, and a lot of the cost is sometimes somewhat miscellaneous in nature. So the budget is you know, largely contingency there. But I guess with that as background, I'll make the motion to fund this for up to $5,000. It was written up as a 2-year time frame, and then reevaluate at that point in time. So.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is a new, excuse me, a new item coming to us for the first time as a report from the Erosion Control Committee, a subcommittee of this board that was appointed by the chairman. At our executive board meeting a week ago Monday, it became a concern as to whether or not, as a subcommittee of this board, this item coming to us for the first time was subject to the working group reports requirement of the open meeting law 127 1.18. I checked with the Attorney General about that, and the advice I've gotten from the Attorney General's office is that the Erosion Control Committee is a covered committee of this board, which requires new projects like this to be laid over for one meeting before we can vote on it. It's presented at one meeting, laid over, and voted on at the next meeting. So that's the advice I'm getting from the Attorney General's office, that the open meeting law would apply to this, so that this is not ripe to be voted on until our March meeting.
Would you be open to a motion to move this item to the March agenda then as
Well,
a
I
voting item?
would, well, we don't have a substitute. Did we get a second on that?
There's no
Not
second
yet.
yet.
Okay, then, I think,
I'll second it so we can move on.
okay, you'll say.
Seconded by Klein to move on.
Okay,
and then-
I'll move a substitute motion that in compliance with the open meeting law, STCL 1-27-1.18, and advice provided to us by the Attorney General's office, we lay this item over for action until our March meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Young. Discussion on the substitute motion.
Seems reasonable to me.
Okay. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, and I'll give Larry a second to type it in.
What's that?
That's Coth's doing.
He's got the winds blowing.
Somebody coming in early.
Venturi effect.
So is this 126,
1-27
27?
-1.18.
Okay, the motion on the floor is by McGregor, seconded by Young, to postpone this item to the March 2026 meeting in compliance with South Dakota Codified Law 1-27-1.18. Discussion on the motion.
Just appreciate you taking that to the Attorney General to get some clarification.
Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Motion passes. That moves original item number 5 down to, which is now item 15, the election of officers by codified law, South Dakota Codified Law 46A-3B-11. So every year we do have to elect our officers for the upcoming year. We have 4 positions. They are a chairperson, which must be a director. It is a 1-year term. A vice chairperson must be a director. That's also a 1-year term. A secretary must be a director, a 1-year term. And then the treasurer may or may not be a director, but serves at the pleasure of the board. Looks like I will open up nominations for chair of the board for 2026. Are there any nominations for the chair position?
I would nominate Director McGregor.
I would second that nomination.
Mr. Chairman, I decline the nomination.
Okay.
Do I need to note that?
No, because it's not voted on, so. Nomination for chair.
Carrie's not here to nominate him in absentia, is he?
That's a good reason to nominate him.
Exactly. I'm sorry, you were elected, duly elected. There's our new chairman.
You missed it.
It was unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I do know, excuse me, that the statute does provide that once an officer is elected, they hold the position until their successor is
And
duly
if-
elected.
and if
Statute says
no-
each officer elected in accordance with this section shall hold office until the next annual meeting or until a successor has been selected.
And I'm willing to hold the chair position if necessary, but please understand that I'm a little bit more busy and kind of coming out of things. So if there is no other person that would like the opportunity to be chair of this board, I will hold the position, but I will notify that things may come up family-wise due to the children, that I may not be the most gettable person, but I will, if there is a nomination, I would accept it for this time being.
Sounds like the Hotel California.
Yeah.
Can check in, but you can't check out.
Did, Care, has he expressed any interest to anyone
No.
on any positions?
He's gone all winter every year
Oh, that's right.
for the foreseeable future. He's got a daughter in Texas.
Okay.
Good place to be in the winter.
Mr. Chairman, I would note that I am currently the vice chair of the board. If anybody else wants that, they're more than welcome to it, but if not, I would continue on with that.
I would, if there was a motion that we were tied together, Chairman, not Chairman, Vice Chair McGregor, I would accept the chair if nominated, but just as a notification that I'm doing it because I believe I want I want leadership at the board, and I will do it if necessary.
Can we combine those into a single motion? Or do we need to vote on each individually?
If there is, we have done in the past a unified ballot for all four positions at once.
Okay, well then I'll make that motion. That
Well,
Thomas,
Well, I just as soon have someone step in as a new director, perhaps as treasurer. I'm only, my term is only for a few more meetings, and we've got directors that have got at least a couple of years left. It wouldn't be the worst idea, I don't think, to have a treasurer to kind of start off with, that kind of a sequence. It's not that onerous of a job.
Actually, as I read the statute, Mr. Chairman, we've been doing this wrong because the treasurer is not an elected position. It is
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it
it's an
doesn't,
appointed position by the,
as East Dakota, Jay Gilbertson is their technical treasurer.
you know.
We could even have our administrator act as treasurer,
Yeah,
since he
I
does the
mean,
books.
so the board would appoint a treasurer of this group, but we don't really elect it. That's because the treasurer need not be a director. But I think a motion, Mr. Chairman, to elect you as chairman again and me as vice chairman combined would stand if somebody
so moved.
so
Second it.
Young, right?
Yep.
We do, however, need a secretary.
Fine, yep.
Okay, discussion on the motion. If elected, I will try to keep the balance that I have, and I really hope for your support.
Nominated, you will not run. If elected, you will not serve.
All those in favor of electing Mac and McGregor to their current positions of chair for Mac and vice chair for McGregor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then the next position open is secretary. This was held by Craig Kerr. It is a one-year term. Are there any nominations for secretary?
I nominate Craig Kerr.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mullally.
Did he attend the executive committee meeting?
By phone.
Over the phone.
Over the phone.
Did he indicate,
There was no discussion really on that position.
I talked with him personally, and he said he had decided that he would be willing to continue on in that position. He had waffled a little bit, but if we can elect him at this meeting, and if we can do that without he's not here to decline, he can always resign.
Yep.
Is that workable for us?
I believe so.
Yeah, the last time I talked to him, he sounded like he was willing to do it, but
Right.
it wasn't 100% commitment or anything like that either.
Well, my last discussion, he said he had decided he was willing. He'd been somewhat reluctant, but he decided he was willing, but he can speak for himself.
In March, and when we send him the
after,
congratulations email, he can tell us that we made a mistake. But right now, nominate Care by Director Driscoll, seconded by Director Mullally to re-elect to the current position. Any discussion on the item? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Director Care. You are now our secretary for the second year. Treasurer. Now, the treasurer may or may not be a director, and it serves at the pleasure of the board. Are there any?
Dan, would you be willing to be treasurer?
No, I'd rather not. I don't, yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Anybody else? Bill?
No, I'd rather not.
Definitely not.
$1 million sitting there.
So the only difference I see between what I'm doing now and the treasurer is that I would give the report at this meeting.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
that's kind of what,
I think you're the
Ron's saying.
treasurer.
So I can do that. So you guys just appoint me.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say if you're willing, that's your good choice. I
definitely.
wasn't sure if you'd want your contract changed or not.
We could go through a vote or just,
I would.
I'll- Good.
Go ahead.
I'll nominate Larry as treasurer.
Second?
Okay. So Klein, seconded by McGregor. Okay, discussion on the item. I think we already had it as we got. All those in favor of having our admin, Mr. Stetler, as the treasurer, state by stating aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, congratulations for the extra job role, and we appreciate all your work that you do.
Yep. You have to figure out the check signature process and dual signatures, that kind of thing.
Well, I'm already on there, Ron's already on there, maybe a transit, or you and I, so like
Yeah.
on the two signatures, that's covered for the time being, and then maybe we'll have to tie in either Care or Director McGregor and have Ron and have that fun thing where we all go to the bank and sit for about an
Yeah.
hour and sign a whole bunch of paperwork.
so for the meantime, just you and I then?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
It seems like the vice chair would be a logical additional signature if you'd be willing.
Excuse me, he'd be willing.
Okay, so we'll get that lined up,
Okay, yeah.
to do the signature
It's
change.
best to line things like that up ahead of time so that you don't get caught.
Yeah. So we
in a
can
pinch.
we can get something going shortly after this meeting. Okay. Now we're moving into item 16, sorry.
That's no problem, I was looking for an excuse to leave anyway.
Anything you'd like to say before you go?
World Water Day, March 26th, I think, or 28th, something like that. It's coming up. And the beaver thing tomorrow night.
Beaver things tomorrow night.
See you there. Have fun.
The beaver
Thank
thing,
I'll talk about it.
okay. Not Theodore Cleaver beaver, but.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board now would adjourn and reconvene in executive session to discuss the legal matter of the opinion we've received from the Gunderson Palmer Law Firm.
Okay, and so that requires the recording to be turned off because it is an executive session, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly.